Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. It's a pleasure to be back with you again tonight. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. And first, let's touch upon a topic that many of you have been asking. How do I avail myself of all the previous episodes? Very simple. Go on YouTube, click A Time for Truth show, hit the subscribe button. We'll be happy to have you as a member. There's no fee, and you can become part of the group that's bringing truth and a purposeful, flourishing future to our country, to our communities, really to our planet. And we have so much, so it's important for us to make sure that we safeguard it. We'd love to have you, and you'll be availed of all the previous episodes. Tonight's show is something really that has been weighing on a lot of minds across the world, across the countries, across the New York area. Many of my friends have been speaking about what's going to be happening. Things seem to be changing so rapidly. Things that used to go more smoothly or calmly or at a more acceptable pace, changing like that. And also sometimes you wonder what's truthful and what's not, because you see something on a social media site or an internet promotion or advertisement, and you decide not to do it immediately, and the next thing you know, it's gone. Or that you hear that it was some kind of scam, and you're very happy that you didn't engage, that you didn't, open yourself up to some kind of fraud and attack on your profile, your personality, your links, your accounts. Many, many things are changing. And with the advancements of technology, the holes in our society, the gaps, the portions that have opened up that haven't been safeguarded become evident. And so many of us wonder, well, what are we going to do with this future of technology, of artificial intelligence, of the speed that it's progressing at? What are the effects going to be? And some of us had said, well, how do we avoid these futuristic movies? How do we avoid, as an example, one that I love, Matrix, and where humanity really at that point was enslaved. If they were even awake, they seemed to be in little tubs, watching or living artificial virtual lives that some people say, well, that's not too far a leap from what we're doing now with video games and plugging ourselves into phones and looking into our cell phones and iPads and computers and not really looking in the world and other people complaining that you can't talk anymore, that everything is virtual. So we need to take a look at how humanity doesn't become the victim of our progress forward and of artificial intelligence. We need to make sure that our future is protected. And you really, if you look at it, it's a thoughtful concern, because it's important to realize that when you prepare, it seems like things never occur, but when you let them random to the whims of the winds, things seem to happen. And there's another word I can't say on television, but you probably already captured my thought and you're laughing there. We don't want those things to happen. So it's more than just a thoughtful concern, but it's a good prevention to separate and not allow that fictional world of artificial intelligence enslaving mankind in some futuristic movie. We need to make sure that that doesn't occur. And some of us say, well, that's the worst case scenario, Dr. Ben. And, you know, as humans, we'll always be in control. But the reality is that technology is increasing the pace of our society. The dissolution of borders, the open society, and the lack of controls, the lack of discipline, the lack of regulation, where it seems like someone can obtain your information online and you can be exposed or lose your life savings, is not an uncommon reality. And we still have ability and agency to control these things. And the key to avoiding something like that is to establish ethical and moral guidelines. Because if you look at it, and I've known of this from situations of people that I knew, or young people that have experienced this, that they've experienced incidents on social media where they really experienced tremendous negative emotional aspects because of what was able to be done on social media. There was no regulation. And something that started out as a little bit of fun turned into something that caused a teenager to commit suicide because of the horrible feeling and the disgrace, or the feeling of just total fear of going out again and being with their friends because of what they had experienced on social media. And it's not uncommon. And you see sometimes on media where there are announcements. My wife and I actually experienced this a few weeks ago, where they had a supposed special program from the White House. And I told my wife, the president looks a little bit funny. He doesn't look right. She said the same thing. And luckily we realized that it didn't look quite right. But it was saying that now the country was going to turn to a digital coin, and that if you sent in by this QR code, your digital currency would be doubled immediately. Well, in a few hours, that site disappeared. But if you were one of the ones who hit that QR code, you would expose your finances to this scam that then disappeared. And then how would you ever find it? Because what agency would you turn to? Would you write any company? Because it seems like you can't get them. It doesn't seem like there's a way to get through to them, or it takes a week to get through. What would happen in a week's time at the rate of AI, of seconds? So we need to have strong guidelines so mankind can feel secure, and so the future has survival. If you look at this, the priority has to be human beings and the security and the stability one with another, because that's how civilization began. That's what brought us out of the caves, when we trusted each other and we worked as a collaborative whole against the elements. So AI has done some unbelievable things. As a surgeon, it definitely has helped me in certain things that I spent a lot of time on. But those things I never used another person for. It saved me time, but it didn't replace me. So it was a tool that I was using to make myself more efficient in delivering what I was doing. And in this case, I think it would be fantastic for anyone to use. But what we have to take a look at, what starts happening when we start replacing people. When they lose their jobs and we say, well, and I've been upset with employees myself, I say, well, I don't want to do with that anymore. I'm going to just put it on AI. I don't need to have those 2 or 3 people on the phone. I'm going to excise them. What happens to that community? Does anything happen? Or do I just make more money and write it off to business? But what would happen if I was the blunt of that episode? How would I feel? What would be my feelings toward my employer? So, to me, it looks like we need to create ethical guidelines globally, because this is a global problem. This is a global situation where all countries, all organizations and companies, all institutions, all populations, really all mankind, need to collaborate and agree for the prosperity and security of humanity. You know, some I want to laud because they're already working on safety guidelines, on prosperity, and such as the European Union's example with its AI Act, and other groups such as OpenAI researching. And it's important, really, I think, for this to become more of a magnitude, because the exponential growth of AI and our technology is really going at breakneck speed. And what we should have going even faster at quantum speed is the morality, the regulation, the ethical guideline to preserve our security, to preserve the basis of our civilization, and to preserve the future of every human being. We need to provide equal opportunities, because if you were excised, how would you feel? Really, I think it's a golden rule in the world, but sometimes we forget that when something impacts us, now it's a different story. But if it impacts somebody else, well, we're just making a profit. And as I've probably been on many sites such as Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and you see the ads and the announcements about, I just made X zillions or thousands or millions in X amount of time, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And I always say to myself, who wouldn't want to have more money? But where did that money come from? And what about all the people who generated that money? Did they lose it all? And if they lost it all, what kind of integrity and what kind of prosperity is being created for the future? So we've got to take a look at how we support and retrain our populations for future job pathways as our world changes. Because those are human beings. And our world is more than money. Our world is more than wires and computers. When you look at it, the energy comes from what? From human beings. And I'm going to show you something at the end of the show that scientifically corroborates that from the Surgeon General of the United States of America, not a philosophy, not a religion, although they're very important. And it's very interesting how the Surgeon General kind of actually acknowledges the importance of that in humanity, in our relationships. So we need to take a look at supporting creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, our collaboration, because these will become even more valuable in order to enable future prosperity, of dignity, of freedom, of choice, and of movement, of well-being, of demanding accountability, of demonstrating and having responsibility without threat. Not because it's a law, but because we realize it's important for ourselves and for our communities. That these human virtues become the basis of our world and really become incorporated, as all religions really have agreed upon, into a flourishing civilization on this planet Earth. A more ideal and desirable future than some sci-fi movie. Before I show you a special video, I want to mention to you, the enemy of man is not man. It's not a man of a different color or a woman of a different color. It's not a man or woman of a different faith or a different origin. But the enemy of man is an enemy that replaces man because he's become obsolete, where man is no longer important, where the money replaces the value of a life, where the energy of that life is not really of consequence, where the man is made a slave and can no longer determine his future. That's the enemy of man. And so I want to play you a video that I feel is very pertinent to this situation, because our world needs a balance of technology and spirituality, of morality versus prosperity and wealth planning. We need to take a look at emotional planning of the future of civilization. So I want to play you a video from The Way to Happiness International, a nonprofit group that purveys its material in 18 languages free of charge. I've always found it very interesting, and I think now it's even more pertinent and important than ever. Engineer, please, let's put on that video from The Way to Happiness.
19. Try not to do things to others that you would not like them to do to you. Among many peoples in many lands for many ages, there have been versions of what is called the Golden Rule. The above is a wording of it that relates to harmful acts. Only a saint could go through life without ever harming another. But only a criminal hurts those around him without a second thought. Completely aside from feelings of guilt or shame or conscience, all of which can be real enough and bad enough, it also happens to be true that the harm one does to others can recoil on oneself. Not all harmful acts are reversible. One can commit an act against another which cannot be waved aside or forgotten. Murder is such an act. One can work out how severe violation of almost any precept in this book could become an irreversible harmful act against another. The ruin of another's life can wreck one's own. Society reacts. The prisons and the insane asylums are stuffed with people who harmed their fellows. But there are other penalties. Whether one is caught or not, committing harmful acts against others, particularly when hidden, can cause one to suffer severe changes in his attitudes toward others and himself. all of them unhappy ones. The happiness and joy of life depart. This version of the Golden Rule is also useful as a test. When one persuades someone to apply it, the person can attain a reality on what a harmful act is. It answers, for one, what harm is. The philosophic question concerning wrongdoing, the argument of what is wrong, is answered at once on a personal basis. Would you not like that to happen to you? No? Then it must be a harmful action, and, from society's viewpoint, a wrong action. It can awaken social consciousness. It can then let one work out what one should do and what one should not do. In a time when some feel no restraint from doing harmful acts, the survival potential of the individual sinks to a very low ebb. If you can persuade people to apply this, you will have given them a precept by which they can evaluate their own lives. And for some, opened the door to let them rejoin the human race. The way to happiness is closed to those who do not restrain themselves from committing harmful acts.
So there you go. I think it's very appropriate to what we're discussing today, because what is a harmful act? What is a criminal act? Well, I think AI has a lot of positive benefits to it. Applied correctly, can do a tremendous amount for humanity. I've seen a lot of benefits in my life, but I'm concerned that we implement discipline, ethics, morality to the future so that we protect humanity. We don't protect AI, we protect the future of civilization on this planet and our interaction as human beings, which is really what life is all about, including the animals and the plants and the planet, the beauty of all of that, not just technology. So I want to actually now share with you something from the Surgeon General of the United States of America. An engineer, if you could, let's put up that image so the viewers can have where they can turn to. This is actually his treatise on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation in the United States of America from Dr. Vivek Murthy, MD, the physician in charge of our country for 8 years under Obama and Trump. And this is what he stated, a partial statement from this treatise. Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. It harms both individual and societal health. It is associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. The mortality impact of being socially disconnected is similar to that caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, and even greater than associated with obesity and physical inactivity. And the harmful consequences of a society that lacks social connection can be felt in our schools, workplaces, and civic organizations where performance, productivity, and engagement are diminished. Given the profound consequences of loneliness and isolation, we have an opportunity and an obligation to make the same investments in addressing social connection that we have made in addressing tobacco use, obesity, and the addiction crisis. This Surgeon General's advisory shows us how to build more connected lives and a more connected society. If we fail to do so, we will pay an ever-increasing price in the form of our individual and collective health and well-being. And we will continue to splinter and divide until we can no longer stand as a community or a country. Instead of coming together to take on the great challenges before us, we will further retreat to our corners, angry, sick, and alone. Those are the words of the top physician of our country for 8 years, Dr. Vivek Murthy, MD, a man of vision, a man of humanity, a true doctor of mankind. Someone put there by both Obama and Trump, who recognized his ability. We need to take a look at his words and realize that technology does not replace humanity, but that humanity and lack of causes physical infirmity, the things we fear in terms of death. It's not a philosophy. And so tonight's show was an urging for all of us to awaken to the importance to put social interaction, ethical principles, and respecting one another into action in our society. Let's do so. Let's heed the words of our Surgeon General. Let's take a look at this tremendous program called The Way to Happiness International that can be found online at thewaytohappiness.org. Let's take a look at how we actually make come true what so many philosophers have said. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Moses, so many. And what a modern day philosopher stated when he said, when we can fully trust each other, there will be peace on earth. Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. Let's heed the words of all these men of wisdom, these generals of humanity who have fought for civilization. Let's come together. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let's use AI in a way that respects humanity and where man respects man and the ability to have a prosperous and flourishing future. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any comments, you can always write atimefortruthshow at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can subscribe. Let's make this a better world. Have a very good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet